Welcome to today's webinar on how to set the stage for journey mapping success. My name is Joana Brink-Quintanilha, and I'm a senior analyst at Forrester Research. And I'll be taking you through today's webinar, which is brought to you by Tandem 7. Journey maps function as a lens through which employees view their company from the perspective of the customer. They're essentially documents that visually illustrate customers' processes, needs, and perceptions throughout their relationships with a company. A journey map can also be augmented with additional data to drive different activities and types of analysis. It can be augmented with emotional perception and moments of truth, with the ecosystem, the people, the processes, and the tools that enable an experience to take place, as well as measuring listening posts. We know that journey maps are really popular. In fact, in a recent Forrester survey, 63% of customer experience professionals said that their firm has mapped its existing customer experiences. And when it comes to format, journey maps can take on many different shapes and forms. They can look clean and simple, like this one from Lego, or they can be highly detailed, like this one from publishing company Elsevier. Or they can go on forever, like this one. Or they can be dynamic, with layers of quantitative and qualitative insights built into it, like this one, which was created using Tandem 7's UX 360 tool. Now, companies take very different approaches to journey mapping, from ad hoc to systematic and from reactive to proactive. Most companies start in the ad hoc reactive camp, using journey maps to fix broken experiences or capitalize on an opportunity. Others may start in the ad hoc proactive camp, which means they are using journey maps to create new offerings and envision an ideal or future journey. A few progress to a systematic use of journey maps that uses journey maps to move beyond repairing the experience to elevating customer experience and continuously delivering the right experiences. Firms like Eon and Penske and Pitney Bowes have progressed from ad hoc to systematic and from reactive to proactive at different paces and in different ways. And the reason that companies are so keen on journey maps is because journey maps have the potential to address key customer experience challenges and an evolving customer experience framework, because they deepen customer understanding, creating a consistent and shared understanding of who customers are, what they really want and need to accomplish, and how they perceive their interactions with a brand. Journey maps also help to break down siloed behaviors, which is a good thing because 59% of customer experience professionals tell us that there is insufficient collaboration by business owners across silos within their organization. Journey maps also inject customer thinking into the design process by involving customers in experience design, which again is an important thing because just 21% of customer experience professionals actually say that their firm consistently uses customer research as an input into customer experience design projects, and only 11% consistently engage customers, partners, and employees in those design experiences. And finally, journey maps also give employees training and behaviors a customer focus, because the truth of the matter is that only 31% of firms have the kinds of rituals and routines that really keep customers top of mind for their employees. Now, the challenge that we see, however, is that many customer journey maps don't live up to their potential. And this is for a number of reasons, because many journey maps ignore best practices. They lack purpose and goals, for instance. Any customer journey mapping effort needs to start with a vision, a clearly defined intention. So for instance, when CGU Insurance set out to use journey mapping, its purpose was to become the leader among small and medium-sized enterprises by becoming easier to do business with. Another company responded to internal feedback that their sales process took too long And so they used journey mapping to launch a digital platform that allowed customers to do things digitally that they previously needed a sales associate to do. But journey maps can also lack goals. Journey maps, as we've seen before, can be strategic or tactical, so they can be ad hoc or they can be more systematic. They can fix the current state or help to visualize a future state experience. The intended impact of the journey map will shape the data that's required, who participates in the process, what gets created, the action items, and the success metrics. So knowing what the goal is of the journey that you're mapping is extremely important in order to set that up for success. But journey maps sometimes are also not considered as part of a larger customer experience framework that takes into consideration the customer experience maturity of a particular organization. Journey mapping shouldn't be considered in isolation. It's part of that larger customer experience strategy and framework. So for instance, before automatic data processing, ADP used journey mapping to improve onboarding, it realized that it faced some gaps in measurement. So first, it adopted Net Promoter Score as its key metric, and it reduced the number of surveys that it sent out to customers, and invested in text analytics to make sure that it had a good reading of the current state customer experience and that it could monitor and track improvements to its journeys. So knowing what your current state is, knowing what your customer experience maturity is important in order to actually create effective journey maps. But at the more micro level, we also see that some journey maps lack essential content. At a minimum, all journey maps should include core content such as the target customer, a description of the journey, and what the customer is doing, thinking, and feeling along the way. But some journey maps miss even that very essential content. We also see journey maps that take a one-size-fits-all format that really isn't fit for purpose. The format and the content of a journey map are a function of its intended audience and use. So, for example, if you have a journey map that's going to be used to drive project planning and prioritization, you need the right level of detail in that and the right information in order to speak to that audience and make sure that they act on the insights in the journey map. And finally, in some cases, journey maps fall short as an effective communication tool, which they should be. Whether they're in digital or physical form, journey maps should incorporate sound design and storytelling practices to really be able to drive action. So when journey maps ignore best practices, this leads to poor results, it leads to wasted time and money, and we know that setting up a journey mapping workshop and doing journey mapping within your organization costs time and money. It costs time from your stakeholders to participate in the workshop, to take time out of their schedules. But we know that even a basic journey mapping workshop can cost up to $80,000 to set up if you're going to get external help to come and run and facilitate the workshop, for instance. So it is an investment of time and money. You want to make sure you get value out of that. And also, ignoring best practices can end up discrediting customer experience practices if the journey maps don't deliver value. Which is why at Forrester we've created a 7-step process for highly effective journey mapping. And it looks something like this. Essentially, it's a change management process, and the journey map is a change management tool in that process. Step 1 and 2 are crucial to help you avoid some of the pitfalls like mapping without purpose and a clear goal that I mentioned earlier. They help you to prepare properly. Step 3, 4, and 5 help you to decide what to do, how you're going to actually map the journey and make it happen. And then you've got step 6 and 7, which help you to actually make those changes stick within the organization. They help you to create short-term wins, as well as embed some bolder, more ambitious initiatives that you may have uncovered through your journey mapping. For the purposes of this webinar, we're going to be focusing primarily on steps 3 and 5, preparing and planning the journey, mapping the workshop, and validating and socializing those journeys. But I will also touch on step 7 and 6 later on in the webinar to give you some recommendations around setting up the right governance to make sure that that customer-centric thinking that journey maps create actually sticks within your organization. So to look at steps 3, 4, and 5, we're going to be looking at 4 flavors of journey mapping. There are 4 ways to map your customer journey, these 4 flavors. One is the hypothesis-first approach, the other is the research-first approach, the other is the co-creation approach, and finally, the quick-fire approach. The hypothesis-first approach is all about creating cross-functional team alignment and getting buy-in of customer experience as a business imperative. The research-first approach is about creating deeper customer understanding and insights within your organization. The co-creation approach is about customer involvement and collaboration. And the quick-fire approach is about creating a tangible customer experience success story that you can use to socialize the importance of journey mapping and of customer experience within your organization. To help you decide which journey mapping approach is the right one to use, I'm going to walk you through the characteristics of each one of these approaches, each one of these flavors of journey mapping. And then also talk about some other things that you should consider when you're deciding which approach is right for you. So to start us off, we're going to be looking at the hypothesis-first approach. So remember, the hypothesis-first approach is all about cross-functional alignment. It's commonly used when firms want to drive customer-centric culture change with a cross-functional group of stakeholders. By using journey mapping to reframe discussions around the customer experience rather than internal operations, stakeholders begin to develop a more outside-in perspective and understand how their individual actions can collectively result in negative customer interactions. It typically involves 12 to 20 stakeholders, which include internal subject matter experts, frontline employees, as well as customer experience professionals. The format of this approach is a 1 to 2 day workshop, potentially followed by a validation research effort. The output is a journey map hypothesis, as well as stakeholder buy-in and enthusiasm for journey mapping. It provides an introduction to journey mapping methodology, and it's a relatively easy format and approach to set up and run. For this particular approach, customer experience professionals focus on core customer journeys, such as onboarding or making a purchase and getting help, that the organization knows to an extent and has some information about, some voice of the customer data around, but also knows needs work. And while including stakeholders who want to learn journey mapping is a plus, customer experience professionals should also prioritize sufficient cross-functional representation, because remember, this approach is about aligning different silos, different departments, different functions within the organization around a common understanding of the customer. The enthusiasm that's generated during the workshop can quickly dissipate if you don't follow it up with validation research and activities that keep employees engaged and involved. Now, if you have journey mapping skills in-house, you can get started with this approach straight away with the right preparation. For firms who want to build or hone customer journey mapping skills in-house, doing a hypothesis-first approach with an external partner and then taking a train-the-trainer approach to it can be a really good way to start building some of those skills in-house, but also get you started with this hypothesis-first approach. But remember, the hypothesis-first approach needs follow-up with validation, and you need to set the proper expectations as well for the people who are in the room, the stakeholders in the room, that at the end of the workshop you have a hypothesis of the journey map, but you still need to go out and validate that with data within your organization or with customers themselves. Key ingredients for a successful hypothesis-first workshop include setting proper expectations with the participants and taking the time to build empathy through mapping what the customer is thinking, what they're feeling, what they're hearing, what they're seeing, what they're doing, but also mapping the ecosystem so stakeholders understand the role that they play in delivering a particular journey. To ensure follow-up and inspire action, some companies display the maps they've created in workshops in meeting rooms and walkways where customer experience-related discussions typically take place. A common tactic that companies employ for socializing maps and gathering additional insights post-workshop is to have employees augment poster-sized versions of their journey map with post-it notes. So for instance, employees can add color-coded post-it notes for pain points or for active projects or for customer experience improvement ideas or even supporting research they're aware of that may add some data and some insights to the journey map and help you to start validating it. The second approach that we're going to be looking at is the research-first approach. Now, this approach is all about creating deep customer understanding and insights. And of course, it does so by involving the customer in the actual mapping approach. So rather than prioritizing cross-functional alignment, the primary focus of this approach is on gathering primary customer research at the start of the process. It enables customer experience professionals and researchers to deeply understand their customers' needs, their motivations, their behaviors, the context in which they're having the experiences, as well as the experience flow before attempting to actually map the journey. Some practitioners refer to this approach as a purist approach because it emphasizes the use of primary customer data rather than stakeholder assumptions or hypotheses in the initial creation of the journey map. The participants include customers in the research phase as well as researchers and stakeholders. It can take a longer period of time, so this approach can take 3 to 8 weeks to complete the field research and also to then do the in-house analysis of all of those insights, followed by stakeholder readouts to share those insights as well as the map. So it can be a lengthier process, and that's important to keep in mind. The output of this particular approach is a validated journey map as well as personas. And this approach helps to challenge assumptions because you've got primary research to be able to substantiate some of the claims that you're making and some of the insights that you want to highlight. This approach, of course, requires customer experience professionals or other professionals who are running this particular approach to have a really clear understanding of who the target customer is, the journey to be mapped, as well as the types of journey map data that are going to be needed. For example, a journey that one particular organization mapped for a financial services client required high-level data such as areas of pain across the entire trading experience to help the firm decide where to focus its efforts, whereas a journey for a different financial firm required detailed data on how customers were actually using tools. So whether the tools were easy to use, whether the functionality was appropriate. So depending on the journey you're mapping as well as the purpose of the journey mapping exercise, the kinds of questions that you're asking to your customers, the kinds of things you're maybe observing them do will differ. Ideally, stakeholders and key employees are included in the research as observers or note takers to expose them to the raw customer data and help build empathy for the customer. Some companies also do shadowing exercises or even mystery shopping exercises at the beginning of this approach to really get stakeholders involved in experiencing what the customer experiences. In this approach, customer experience professionals use readout sessions to review key insights and solicit feedback and refine and validate the journey map, and to build empathy, of course, among the stakeholders who didn't directly participate in the research or the shadowing exercises that you did at the beginning of the process. And these collaborative workshops give participants a sense of ownership over the journey map and the opportunity to, of course, to incorporate additional data into the maps and to refine the journey map through these readout sessions. Research techniques such as interviews and contextual inquiry, card sorting, drawing activities, diary studies, shadowing, reacting to mood or theme cards help to draw out insights from customers during the research phase. And as I said previously, ideally you'll have some of the stakeholders actually participate in some of this research process to make sure that they really walk in the customer's shoes. The third approach we're going to be looking at is the co-creation approach, which is all about customer involvement and collaboration in the approach. So it allows direct customer involvement. By co-creating the journey maps with customers, customer experience professionals or other professionals that are using this approach get the immediate satisfaction of producing a validated journey map at the end of a one-day workshop. So very different to the hypothesis-first approach, for instance. So this approach also affords the option to engage customers in concept testing or brainstorming or journey redesign, the design of future journeys, as well as to address issues and pain points that they identify in the workshop. The planning and facilitation of a co-creation session, however, is not for the timid. It requires extensive preparation time to develop the workshop activities, but also to train the facilitators, recruit the right customers, train stakeholders who are going to be in the room as well. For business-to-business companies, recruiting customers can be complicated and can take extra time because of confidentiality issues that prevent open sharing of experiences, for instance, with other participants who may be competitors or protective salespeople who are blocking direct access to end users. So you need to keep these things in mind when you're considering the amount of time and preparation that's required for a co-creation workshop. The output, of course, is a validated journey map and a co-designed experience and co-designed experience improvement concepts, as well as reactions to new journey ideas or new concepts, and maybe even prototypes. Now, during the workshop, facilitators need to employ soft skills to put workshop participants at ease, to elicit their experience, make sure they draw out the right insights, but also to keep the group focused on the task and manage time and control disruptive personalities or discussions from taking over too much time and derailing some of the exercises you had in mind for the day. The workload on the facilitators, customer experience professionals that adopt this approach should have support staff on hand to make sure they have people who are taking notes, who synthesize customer experience, who are maybe capturing topics that you can't discuss at length on a flip chart, so you can discuss those later, but also taking photographs potentially or recording even some of the discussions that are going on so that you can look at that after the workshop. And of course, after the workshop, customer experience professionals need to share the findings in a way that's culturally appropriate to the organization and that will spur other employees who haven't benefited from being in the room with the customer into action. So you want to make sure that you can capture what happened in the room, in the workshop with the customers in such a way that that's really going to inspire action among other employees who didn't benefit from that experience. In some cases, again, companies have resorted to hanging the post-it notes and the diagrams and the hand-drawn mock-ups from its co-creation sessions in well-trafficked hallways. And as is the case with the research-first approach, customer experience professionals should work with stakeholders to augment the map with transaction and financial data to give it even more additional context. So the co-creation approach is all about that customer involvement. It's typically a 4 to 6 hour workshop. You end up with a validated journey map and a co-designed experience. You have the opportunity to prototype new journeys or to prototype new ideas with your customers in the room, but obviously it requires preparation time, highly skilled facilitation, as well as, of course, after appropriate ways of sharing the insights and augmenting the map with data and context. And some companies, to add grit and bring the map to life where possible, have also incorporated customer verbatims, for instance, or video clips from the workshop in order to really help other employees to experience the kinds of things that the customers talked about in the workshop. The fourth approach that we're going to be looking at is the quickfire approach, which is all about the creation of a tangible customer experience success story for socialization. The quickfire approach creates that tangible customer experience success story. And for companies who are new to journey mapping and who are assembling that initial success story that they can scale and socialize is really essential and can sometimes make the difference between success or failure. The quickfire approach, which is a modified version of the hypothesis-first approach, focuses on a well-known and preferably time-sensitive problem that a core group of stakeholders can resolve and measure quickly. By rapidly delivering value, the quickfire approach helps customer experience professionals to establish journey mapping as a practical and valuable tool for resolving broader customer experience problems. It's run much like a Lean Six Sigma Green Belt project. So it quantifies the business pain, so it could be a sudden drop in revenue, an increase in complaints, or a high churn rate, and it sets a target for improvement, preferably within 90 days or less. And true to its name, the quickfire approach typically takes place as a 60 to 90-minute working session. The project team in that working session will review an assumption journey that's been created by a core customer experience team. It will assess its health from the customer's perspective, as well as rank the moments of truth. And this enables the team to focus on the parts of the journey that are important to the customer and that are in the greatest need of help. The output of a journey mapping is a journey mapping hypothesis, as well as a list of priorities that the team can turn into a success story for socialization. This approach needs strong project management to focus on the business pain and the ranking of the moments of truth, but also to make sure that you're taking action on those things that you've identified in order to be able to track the impact on the journey and on metrics like customer satisfaction or NPS. The validation and socialization in the quickfire approach doesn't focus on the map itself. Rather, the quickfire approach validates insights that are gained in the implementation process. And it's really about implementing some of those changes, those quick wins that are identified in that quick 60 or 90-minute working session, and then tracking the results by validating that through metrics or through additional research with customers so that you can build that success story. In fact, in some cases, the results from an A/B or multivariate test or even feedback from online communities and forums can serve as proof points of success, of customer experience successes in order to help you build that success story. And of course, if you have green or black belts, Lean Six Sigma green or black belts in your company, this may be a really good place to start in order and bring some of those employees, those colleagues into the process. But you've got to make sure that you focus on customer value and that you help and that you also have the right help to socialize how journey mapping helped you solve that particular customer or business problem. The quickfire approach uses tools such as the 5 whys to do root cause analysis on problem areas. And it also follows this with brainstorming exercises that come up with quick win solutions as well as some more medium-term solutions. And then the team goes through an exercise of value mapping some of those quick win solutions and some of those other medium-term solutions, asking themselves what is the value to the customer of each one of these solutions, what is the value to the brand of each one of the solutions, but also what's the feasibility of actually implementing these. And by value mapping the solutions discussed in this way, the team is able to identify some of the lower value, the lower effort things that they can implement, as well as some higher value but low effort things that they can also implement at the same time, and then what they're going to need to measure in order to track progress and to be able to build a success story around those things. So in summary, we've looked at 4 different approaches that companies can take to actually mapping their journeys. The first approach, the hypothesis-first approach, is all about that cross-functional team alignment and creating buy-in for customer experience as a business imperative. Some of the pros of the hypothesis-first approach is that it, of course, provides a great introduction to journey mapping methodology, and it's relatively easy to set up. If you have journey mapping skills in-house, this is one that you can set up quite quickly by inviting the right group of stakeholders into the journey mapping workshop and then running that with some in-house skills. If you don't have those skills in-house, of course, you can reach out and get an external partner to come in and help you set up that initial map or that initial workshop, and then maybe train some of the people in the room to be able to do that subsequently on your own. Some of the cons of the hypothesis-first approach is, of course, that it doesn't produce a validated map after the workshop. So you need to follow up with validation with customers, or by reaching out to perhaps other people in the organization that have relevant customer data that are going to help you to validate some of those assumptions that you've made during the workshop. The research-first approach is all about creating those deep customer understanding, and drawing out those insights. The pros of that approach, of course, is that it delivers an actual validated map, and it challenges assumptions within the organization. So this can be a great way of maybe challenging some of that legacy thinking within your organization, or some deep-setted assumptions that you need to really change in order to inspire customer-centric behavior within your organization. And of course, the authority that primary research adds to some of that challenge of the assumptions. Some of the cons of that approach, however, is that it can be lengthier and it can have some higher upfront costs, and it's a little bit trickier to set up because you've got to make sure that you can invite the right customers to do the research and schedule that kind of research. It could be interviews, it could be observing customers, actually doing contextual research with them. So obviously that's a harder thing to set up, but of course extremely valuable thing to do. The co-creation approach, of course, is all about customer involvement in the actual workshop. So collaborating with your customers to diagnose your current journeys, but maybe design new journeys, and even assess ideas or solutions or prototypes, prioritize the things that matter most to them right there in the workshop. So the pros, of course, is that it provides the ability to really truly understand and analyze and design and prototype new journeys all at once, because you've got the customer there in the room with you. The cons, however, is that it needs highly skilled facilitation. It can be a lengthier thing to set up because you need to get the customers in the room at the same time, and you're dealing with different schedules. But if you have those skills in-house that are going to help you to facilitate a co-creation workshop, that's great. Again, otherwise you can reach out to an external partner who can maybe come in and help you set up a workshop like that and be a neutral presence in the room to help you have some of those harder conversations with your customers about what's going well and what's not going so well in the journey. And finally, the fourth approach, the quick-fire approach, which is a lighter weight approach to journey mapping, which is really about picking something that you know is a problem and then creating a tangible customer experience success story that you can then socialize within your organization. So the pros, of course, of this approach is that it builds that customer experience success story fast, which means that if you're at the start of your customer experience journey, this is a great one to use because you're going to need that success story in order to create momentum within your organization. It helps you get buy-in and to rally other employees around customer experience and the value of journey mapping and of thinking, walking in the customer's shoes. The cons of this approach, of course, is that it's less effective at alignment and at culture change, because you don't have the benefit of getting that wider group of people, that wider cross segment of people in a room really thinking from the customer's perspective. So it's a quicker approach. You're doing it with a core customer experience team, and therefore that cultural, that cross-functional alignment is less present and less effective in this particular approach. So to help you decide which journey mapping approach is the right one to use, obviously we've run through the characteristics of each approach, which hopefully has already given you some ideas in terms of which one might be right for you, for your customer experience maturity, for the kind of purpose you have in mind for your journey mapping, or the kind of goal you have in mind. But there's some other things that you should also think about when you're thinking of selecting the right approach. And one of them is, of course, taking stock of essential skills that will also influence the approach you pick. So I've already highlighted this and alluded to this a number of times, but it's essential, of course, to know that, while the desired outcome of the effort, so whether it's aligning teams or gaining deep customer understanding or securing buy-in, plays a significant role in selecting the approach, your firm's skill inventory will also influence which approach you pick. The hypothesis-first approach is the most forgiving one, of course, so it requires only modest facilitation and project management and design skills. So firms without a strong expertise in qualitative research will find, for instance, taking on the research-first approach a little bit too daunting, perhaps. And the co-creation approach is perhaps the most challenging one because it requires firms to have top-notch facilitation and design and project management skills. So you really have to be very confident that you have those skills in-house, or to look out for the right partner who is going to help you to set a co-creation workshop together. The quick-fire approach, on the other hand, requires strong project management skills and potentially the participation of Lean Six Sigma, Green, or Black Belts. So each one of the 4 approaches has a different demand in terms of skills and brings different skills to light, which you need to keep in mind. Of course, you should also consider whether you have the right allies, or you should think about finding the right allies, depending on your company culture, the skill sets you have, the budget, the urgency, as well as the bandwidth. These are all things, all factors that you should take into consideration when deciding whether to create your journey maps in-house or to hire an outside firm to do it for you. So for instance, at one particular financial services company, they decided to hire a firm to create the journey maps because they had resource limitations and they had a history of using external vendors, so they felt comfortable getting somebody external to come in and fill in those resource gaps. And in fact, the exact same company in a different market, in a different geography, actually decided to take a different approach. They felt that they had the necessary skills within their team to do it themselves, and so they didn't get any external help, but decided to run the workshop with their internal team. If external help is desired, then customer experience professionals should be aware that help comes in many styles and sizes. So you've got companies and vendors out there that help you with the user research side of things, or with the persona creation, for instance. You've got user experience designers that could help you with the journey mapping, the facilitation, but also perhaps with a focus on the digital journey. You've got transformation and culture change consultancies that can help you out there, as well as specific journey mapping tool vendors and service providers that can help you to not only facilitate an initial journey mapping workshop, but also then perhaps turn those journey maps into something that is more digital and that can be updated and worked on a continuous basis. But whether you do it in-house or whether you hire a vendor, make sure that you are building your customer experience team's journey mapping skills, and that you do bring some of those skills in-house. And in fact, many of the different types of companies that I mentioned that can help you are starting to offer that skill building capability, and will work with you in order to help you build those skills in-house. So regardless of the approach that you take, and whether you hire somebody or whether you do it in-house, consider attending a journey mapping workshop or hiring a firm to show you how to do that first journey map, and then doing a train-the-trainer kind of model, so that you start to build those skills within your organization. And this, of course, will help you to convey the value of journey mapping to colleagues and leaders, but also to figure out the best way to apply it and to evaluate potential vendors. And at a minimum, customer experience professionals should be familiar with all 4 approaches, which hopefully you are after today's webinar. And in companies taking a strategic approach to journey mapping, they should really be thinking about building those in-house skills and equipping themselves to tackle the hypothesis first and quick-fire approaches at the very least, but perhaps some of the other the research first and the co-creation approaches as well, but where you may need some additional help, because they do require deep ethnography, design, and facilitation skills that you might need from outside. So we focused on steps 3 to 5 in today's webinar, but of course, don't forget the importance of steps 1 and 2, the preparation of the actual workshop, finding purpose, forming a coalition, creating urgency around what you're doing, why you're journey mapping. Then considering which one of the 4 approaches is best for you when it comes to deciding what to do and to making it happen, to actually running that workshop. And then, of course, think about how you actually make that change stick. Because the reality is that the production of a map won't change anything unless it's part of this well-defined process. And don't forget that journey maps should be dynamic, reusable tools that inform an ongoing and evolving customer experience program. which is why increasingly we see that companies are getting really serious about the governance around the maps, around the journeys that they're mapping, in order to really drive customer-centric change. They're thinking about things like accountability, prioritization. How do they prioritize insights and initiatives that are coming out of their journey mapping sessions? But also, how do they sustain those journeys in order to make them dynamic and to make sure that they are being updated continuously? In terms of accountability, it's extremely important to think about that, because most customer experience professionals or other professionals that are mapping journeys generally don't manage all of the groups that the improvements they've identified affect. So they need to assign experience management tasks to specific people, whether it's fixing existing experiences or designing new ones. You need to create accountability for specific things. Prioritization is extremely important because to avoid drowning in a sea of initiatives that don't target the most critical drivers of good customer experience, companies need to prioritize the journey projects across silos and the ones that will have the biggest impact. So we see companies thinking about what kind of prioritization models they need across silos. One particular company, for instance, they evaluate their improvement initiatives for customer experience and human resources and marketing based on how well they align to customer journeys. So projects get 1 point if they align to a moment of truth, for instance, 2 points if they align to a pain point, and 3 points if they align to both. And of course, from a sustainability point of view, the fact is that even the most tactical maps can take time to deliver results. So for journey maps to deliver real economic value, they need long-term owners and processes and tools to keep them updated and vital, which is why many agencies and many companies that will help you journey map will recommend that you have a framework to, at the very least, review and iterate your journey maps, but perhaps also invest in tools that help you to do that in a more ongoing way. And for companies like for instance, they've been thinking a lot about journey mapping governance, and in fact they've created a whole governance model around their journeys. So they've created roles, specific roles for journey managers and journey designers, as well as employees that coordinate cross-journey initiatives, for instance. And they've also looked at creating some shared principles and some common terminology, and they use a single metric. They've got journey templates that allow them to compare journeys around between segments and between countries. So making sure that they have a common governance model that helps people to use journey mapping in a very widespread way throughout the organization. And these employees that have these journey roles, they're responsible for resetting plans and budgets and implementing quick win ideas, but also setting up journey dashboards that help them to really track and monitor how these journeys are changing and whether the initiatives that they are executing on actually have the desired impact on the journey. So to become more systematic, some companies are creating a governance model around their journeys, but they're also investing in journey mapping tools, for instance, that consolidate insights and personas and journeys all in one place. And this is extremely important, particularly if you're focusing on lots of different journeys at the same time, or you've mapped lots of different journeys. You need to bring them into one central repository and have them aggregated in one place so that you can prioritize things adequately. And of course, some companies need to layer more data, more process, and more system information onto their maps so that they can resolve their customer issues in real time and prevent bottlenecks and anticipate interactions, so become more proactive in how they're managing their journeys, which again is why some of them are investing in the right tools in order to be able to model the impact on journeys of certain changes in policy or process or products or technology, and they've started to use their journey maps almost like dashboards, and they're creating centers of excellence that spread the ownership of journey maps and really establish journey mapping as a standard operating process within their organization in order to solve problems, in order to collaborate across different silos, and consistently and systematically think from the customer's perspective. So wanted to leave you with some recommendations following today's webinars, and it draws on some of the things that I've already said today. So, firstly, you need to think about your purpose and your goals and your maturity. So remember those first two steps in the seven-step process for effective journey mapping. You need to know why you're mapping. You need to know what's the most important journey for you to map at this particular point in time. You need to know what the goal is. What kind of change are you going to drive with that map? What is the audience for that map? And that all will shape which approach you take, how you actually go about mapping the journey, which data you actually layer onto that journey. But also, of course, we've talked about deciding which approach is right for you, and I've talked about 4 different approaches that you can consider depending on your skill set, depending on what you're trying to achieve, depending on your customer experience maturity. One of these 4 may be relevant to you, and depending on what you're trying to achieve, if it's cross-functional team alignment, then obviously the hypothesis-first approach is the one that would be most suitable for you. But perhaps you need to challenge some of the customer understanding that's currently within your organization, which means that the research-first approach is going to work better for you. Or if you're at the beginning of your customer experience journey, you may want to consider the quick-fire approach to help you build a success story. And finally, once you've decided which approach to take and you've set that up appropriately, you need to then think about how you actually make that change stick by thinking about processes and standards and also tools and governance ownership that will help you to actually drive customer-centric change with your journey maps. And with that, I'd like to open for some questions, and I can see that there are some questions that have come in through chat today, so I'll start by answering some of those questions. One of the questions that was posed today is whether so how do you determine the return on investment for your journey mapping efforts? And this goes back to what I was saying around making that change stick. So steps 6 and 7 of the journey mapping process, which are around identifying and actioning short-term wins, but then also embedding some of those longer-term changes. That's how you really truly demonstrate the return on investment of a journey mapping effort. It's about identifying what are the pain points, what are the things that need to be improved, what are the success metrics that you're going to use to identify whether you're actually making the right changes from the customer's point of view, and then dynamically looking at your journey maps to assess whether the initiatives you're implementing, the changes you're making to the journey are actually having the desired effect on your customer experience metrics, on your journey metrics, and in that way that enables you to actually determine the return on investment of the journey mapping effort. So it's not the return on investment of, it can be to an extent for the hypothesis first approach. Of course, part of the return on investment is that cross-functional alignment that you've created in the room during the workshop. But obviously, the most of the value comes in actually using the journey map as a change management tool to actually act on those insights and to execute on some of those customer experience initiatives and then measuring the success of that. And that's the return on investment of your journey mapping efforts. Another question that has come in through chat is, how does the project team avoid falling into the trap of having an internal preconceived view when developing the hypothesis or the quick-fire approach? So in order to do that, you need to make sure that of course that you have the right people in the room, but also that you make sure that that right cross segment of people in the room that are going to be able to draw on their expertise of the customer, that are going to be able to also draw on voice of the customer data. So even in the hypothesis first approach and the quick-fire approach, you need to do some analysis, some pre-analysis of what is going on in your current state customer experience. What is your existing voice of the customer data telling you about what's going on with the customer? Perhaps there's already some research, some personas that you can draw on in order to make sure that you aren't just acting on that preconceived view, but you are also layering in and augmenting that with some data that's maybe challenging some of those assumptions or validating some of the assumptions. And then, of course, remember that, for both the hypothesis first and the quickfire approach, you need to go out and validate those journey maps after you've created them based on your stakeholders' assumptions within the workshop. So the work doesn't stop at creating the journey map in that hypothesis first approach or the quickfire working session. You need to then go out and validate that with customers to make sure that you are making the right assumptions. And in many cases, you may be making a lot of the right assumptions, but you need to check that with your customers. Another question that has come in through chat is a question around how do you incorporate personas in journey mapping? So personas are absolutely essential in the journey mapping process, and in fact, in order to journey map, you need to start with a persona. And one of the steps in the 7-step process that I showed you was exactly focusing on preparing for that workshop. So in preparing for your journey mapping workshop, for instance, the hypothesis first workshop, one of the things that you need to do beforehand is either draw on existing personas you have within your organization or create a baseline persona that you can use for the purposes of that workshop to map the journey in order to make sure to help people empathize with the customer. And that's your point of departure, if you're like your starting point for the journey. So personas are absolutely essential. In the research first approach, for instance, in many cases, part of the research is to create personas that will then help you to map the journey. So, so the research first approach often is focused on going out and getting customer insights, observing customers or interviewing them so that you can create so you can create personas, and you can then use those personas to start to layer your journey map with insights, but also to help the stakeholders who didn't do the research get into the shoes of the customers, understand both the persona and then the journey, the goal that they're trying to achieve. So personas extremely important and part and parcel of the whole journey mapping process. And a final question that's come in through chat. So one participant asked, I used a hybrid approach of research and customer involvement for a recent journey mapping project, which I found very helpful. Do you think this is a fruitful approach in certain cases or a waste of time? So I think that's great. I think many companies may use a hybrid approach, and they may do some research to start with if, for instance, they don't have the right set of personas, or they have personas that, for instance, are too product focused and they need something that's more journey focused. So they may start with sort of a hybrid approach of doing some research first and then maybe doing a co-creation approach with the customer in the room to actually map the specifics of that customer's or that persona's journeys. In fact, I was involved in a project recently where we did exactly that for a B2B company. We first did some research to really understand the personas and to make sure that we had journey-based personas, and then we ran a journey mapping workshop where we had a number of the customers in the room doing the journey mapping with us. So a hybrid approach like that can be extremely effective. So with that, I'd like to thank you very much for your attention today, and I hope you found this webinar useful. Thank you.